Today we're looking at the best and worst Toyota since 2015. If you're on the lookout for a used car, you'll want to see this. I'll also bust some myths about turbocharged engines, and we'll see whether turbocharged engines really meet all the hype and how long turbo engines last compared to naturally aspirated ones. Hang tight because this part may surprise you. Let's first look at the 5 best Toyotas, but mind you, these aren't in any specific order. I'll start off with the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, specifically from the model years 2016 to 2018. These particular models have a good record of reliability. While these vehicles share some similarities with the Camry, they ultimately come out on top because of the 2016 facelift. There's only a small handful of recalls on these models. The most recent recall for these vehicles was back in June 2019 and December 2017, both due to an incorrect load information label, which could result in someone overloading a vehicle and increasing the risk of a crash. Now, most owners of these models rate their RAV4s highly. I'm talking 5-star owner reviews that praise the RAV4 Hybrid for its smoothness, comfort, and quiet ride. Other owners love the dependability and gas mileage. One owner even claimed his RAV4 Hybrid was basically indestructible despite driving in difficult conditions like snow. But now there are a few things some owners don't like about the RAV4 Hybrid. Common owner complaints include things like radio and audio issues, GPS problems, and the fact that the 2018 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid didn't come with an Apple CarPlay feature. So if you're someone who absolutely must have Apple CarPlay and a high-tech audio system, you can just skip this model and look for newer models instead. Or maybe just buy an Android phone like me. The next best Toyota is the Camry, specifically from the model years 2015 to 2017. The Camry's been one of the best-selling mid-size sedans in North America for 2 decades. In road tests, the Camry scored high for passenger comfort, a quiet cabin, and a smooth ride. The 2015 Camry was a redesign, and Toyota tweaked the suspension, improved the car's noise reduction, upgraded the interior electronics, and styled the exterior with more drama. Most owners give the Camry a 5-star rating. These model years are noteworthy for their excellent ride and handling, and also for good gas mileage. In fact, some owners even say it's the most reliable vehicle they've ever owned. Most people know Toyotas in general are reliable and good. So what about some things that owners don't like about their Camrys? Most of the complaints had to do with comfort inside the vehicle, like headrests being uncomfortable because they push the driver's head forward at an unnatural angle. To fix this problem, one driver shared how he flipped his headrest backwards. Others complained about the comfort of the back seats. There are 3 recalls collectively on these model years. The most recent recall was back in June 2019 for an incorrect label that could lead to unintentionally overloading the vehicle and increase the risk of a crash. The recall prior was made in May 2017, where it was found that the spare tire wasn't inflated to the proper level and could increase the risk of a crash. And before that, the Camry was called in December 2016 because some of the airbags had been installed with incorrect fasteners, which could loosen over time and impact airbag deployment and increase the risk of injury. Next up is the Toyota Avalon, including the hybrid model, specifically from the model years 2015 to 2018. In road tests, the Avalon was rated as a sensible sedan that scored higher than many other full-size sedans of the same years. Here's why the Avalon is better than the Camry. First of all, it's basically a stretched Camry. You can buy a used Avalon for less than the price of a new Camry. As long as you keep up regular maintenance, the Avalon is very reliable and doesn't have many reported issues. You can easily take the car over 200,000 miles even with just basic regular maintenance. On the other hand, the 2015 to 27 Camrys are a different story, mainly because of the 4-cylinder engine. It loves to burn oil. And if you don't maintain it regularly, including regular oil changes, you're going to face some serious problems. Many owners of the Avalon gave it a 5-star review across categories like reliability, dependability, and comfort. Some even say that the 2018 Avalon was basically a Lexus with the Toyota badge. Now, what owners complain about in the Avalon is how the Avalon handles the cold. Things like wipers freezing and refusing to work. Other complaints included rear window defrost not working and difficulty driving in snowing conditions. So if you live in an area that regularly gets extreme cold temperatures and snow, it might be best to walk past the Avalons of these model years. By the way, the most recent recalls for the 2015 to 2017 Avalons occurred back in January 2020. Basically, Toyota found that in the event of a crash, some of the airbags and seatbelt pretensioners weren't deploying properly. The 2018 Avalon was also recalled back around that time because of failing fuel pumps that caused the engine to stall while driving. Another best bet of all times is the Highlander, specifically model years 2017 to 2019. These Highlanders were in the tail end of the 3rd generation. They came with bolder styling, extra amenities, a new 8 8 passenger seating configuration, and more space. Also, this model became available with a conventional gas and also hybrid powertrain. Now, Toyota refreshed the 3rd generation Highlander in 2017. The thing that most owners love about the Highlander is its smooth ride, comparing it to feeling car-like. And they also love the safety features in the Highlander. 2017 refresh added safety features like automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, and lane departure warning with steering assist across all trims. Now, the 2019 model year didn't bring any huge changes, but it did come with updated features like an 8-speed automatic transmission, more horsepower for the 3.5-liter V8, a sporty SE model, a standard start-stop system to save fuel, and more USB ports. The 2019 model scored 5 out of 5 in reliability tests. That said, the most common issues typically had to do with the fuel system, emissions, and brakes. These Highlanders can fit up to 8 in its 3 rows depending on the trim. But here's the thing, if you ask a Highlander owner, many will say the first 2 rows provide comfortable seats. But the problem is with the 3rd row, it's just not spacious. Some owners of the 2017 Highlander, for example, complained there wasn't much room in the 3rd row for kids' legs when they're in their car seats. So these models aren't the best choice if you have more than 4 in your family and need to put passengers in the 3rd row. Owners also complained about the cargo space being limited and hard to access. Recent recalls for these models include a recall in November 2020 due to failing fuel pumps that caused the engine to stall while driving. Another recall was back in March 2019, again due to incorrect labels that caused owners to overload their Highlander improperly. Another good Toyota that deserves a spot in the list is the Toyota 4Runner, specifically from the model years 2015 to 2023. Toyota's slogan for the vehicle is for adventurers, for legends, 4Runner, so you get a pretty good idea of the target group. Toyota is due to release its 6th generation with the upcoming 2024 model. The current model right now is in its 5th generation and it's been around since the 2010 model year. We're talking 13 years here. Here's the thing, if you're looking to buy a used, the 5th generation is pretty solid. Also, it generally does well in inspections with very few issues, as long as you don't buy it modified and especially if the car's been maintained regularly. But don't take my word for it, just see what current owners of these model years feel about the 4Runner. Generally, most of them praise the models for power, ride quality, and comfortable interior, and good build quality. As far as what owners don't like about it, well, there aren't many fans of the technology inside. It's reliable but basic. It's not too advanced. Some also voiced a dislike about the 2-tone interior in the 2021 4Runners. Now, there was a recall for these models back in July 2022 because the load carrying capacity modification labels were incorrect on 4Runners equipped with the 20-inch black gunner wheels. Basically, they failed to comply with the requirements of the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard. Another recall was back in December 2021 due to the driver's side high beam becoming inoperable after the installation of accessory fog lamps. But now let me tell you about the worst Toyotas I've seen. But instead of one specific model, I'm talking categorically about the latest Toyotas that come with turbochargers. Think Toyotas like the 2023 Highlander or the 2023 GR Corolla. The thing is, yes, the idea of turbocharging sounds cool, but in reality it's a different story. In general, cars with small turbocharged engines will fail faster compared to cars with naturally aspirated engines. But that's far from the only problem with turbocharged engines. A turbocharged engine has a lot more parts than a naturally aspirated engine. There's the turbocharger itself, an intercooler that's basically a small cooling radiator, plus all the extra parts and hardware that go with these 2 components. Extra parts means extra parts to repair in the long run. Just look at the redesigned 2022 Toyota Tundra pickup truck, for example. Toyota replaced the old V8 with a brand new 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. There's already been several reports of issues with the turbochargers and a failure of the electronically actuated wastegates. To replace all these parts in the back of the engine, you have to take most of the truck apart. That brings me to my second point. Turbocharged engines can be very difficult to work on, and because the labor can be intense, that means a higher cost for you too. Turbocharged engines also have issues with heat and pressure. All this additional heat and pressure on the turbocharger engine shortens its lifespan. You see, engine turbochargers work at very high temperatures because they're basically pressurizing air and then forcing more air into the engine, and that strains the engine and destroys the seals of the cylinder head. The next problem with these engines is coolant leakages. Certain Ford 4-cylinder EcoBoost engines, for example, had a defect where coolant could leak into the cylinders. This led to corrosion misfires, internal engine damage, or even cracked cylinders, and sometimes even complete engine failure. Turbocharged engines can be sensitive and temperamental. That's why they're less reliable than naturally aspirated ones when you're driving short distances or extremely cold temperatures especially. Most turbocharged engines need a lot of time to warm up to operating temperature before they can perform properly. So driving only a few miles to the grocery store and then shutting off the car doesn't give your turbocharged engine enough time to warm up, and that could lead to things like buildup of carbon on the intake valves of the engine and a buildup of condensation. Throw in extremely cold outside temperature to the mix, and you got a turbocharged engine that needs to work even harder to warm itself up. The best solution to this problem is completely avoid driving short distances and in extremely cold temperatures if you have a turbocharged engine. There's no other solution for that now. Lastly, with turbocharged engines, you have to be stricter about regular oil changes. And when I say regular, I mean regular. Don't get me wrong, with the naturally aspirated engine, you really should change the oil frequently too. But technically speaking, you can get away with semi-regularly every so often in a non-turbocharged engine. It's not the same story for turbocharged engines. If you neglect it, it won't perform properly in the long run. Here's a question. If turbocharged engines really don't live up to the hype, why are so many car makers these days churning out more cars with smaller engines that are turbocharged instead of larger engines that are naturally aspirated? The answer to that question can be summed up in 3 letters: EPA. I'm talking about the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Car engineers saw that by turbocharging an engine, it could theoretically burn less fuel, and that means a higher EPA rating. That's where it all started. In theory, a higher EPA rating means a better car, right? Well, maybe on the surface, but when you look deeper at the downsides I mentioned, it's not as black and white as it seems. But now you tell me, in your opinion, what's the best Toyota ever and the worst? Please share by commenting below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.